Noah looked up from the sidewalk, and Vincent felt his own past staring back at him. I had seen men lie with steady hands, kill with blank faces, and beg on blood-stained marble when the debt finally came due. None of that prepared me for a 6-year-old boy kneeling beside a cracked stretch of Brooklyn sidewalk, pushing a red toy car through a river of rainwater left by a busted hydrant, then lifting his face with eyes so familiar my chest locked before my mind did. Dark, sharp, watchful eyes. My eyes. Not the color alone. The shape. The way they narrowed first, as if the world had already taught him not to trust it. Elena stood 3 steps behind him with a grocery bag cutting into her fingers, her shoulders tight the way they always were in my office when she was trying to hide exhaustion under professionalism. But this was not the office. There was no polished desk between us, no files, no rules, no distance money could buy. There was only a child, a mother, and a truth that arrived without permission. I stopped walking. My guards noticed before Elena did. 6 men shifted around me with the quiet precision of habit, leather shoes scraping damp concrete, suit jackets pulling open just enough to show the steel hidden underneath. Across the street, a delivery truck idled too long at the curb. 2 men sat inside it, not looking at us too directly, which was exactly how trained eyes watched. I knew that pattern. Rival faction operatives had been probing my routes for weeks, testing routines, measuring weakness. I had come to this neighborhood because Elena missed an evening call and did not answer her phone, something she had never done in 3 years. I told myself I was checking on an employee. The second I saw the boy's face, I knew that lie would not survive the night. Then Noah ran into the street to chase the toy car. Elena dropped the groceries. Noah. The truck door burst open. One of the men came out fast, hand inside his coat, moving not toward me first but toward the child. That was the calculation. Use the boy, pin me in place, force my men to split. In my world, innocence was not protected by default. It was exploited. And in that single hideous second, before any theory could form, instinct moved first. I crossed the curb hard, caught Noah around the waist, and turned my body between him and the gun hand just as the first shot cracked through the block. My guards exploded into motion. 1 shoved Elena behind a parked sedan. 2 returned fire. 1 dragged me down behind a mailbox as glass shattered from a laundromat window and neighborhood children screamed from a stoop half a block away. The room inside my mind went silent. If you've ever seen a man's soul shift in 1 instant, you know it happens without noise. Noah clung to my coat. I looked down at him. He was trembling, but he did not cry. His small fingers twisted in expensive wool now streaked with gutter water and grit. He stared at me like he was trying to decide whether I was danger or shelter. Elena lunged toward us from behind the sedan, fear breaking every careful wall she had ever built around me. Give him to me. Another shot rang out. Too close. I rose with Noah in my arms and moved again, low and fast, using the engine block of the nearest car as cover while my guards closed the angle. 1 operative hit the pavement. Another dove back into the truck. Tires screamed. The truck fishtailed, slammed a trash bin, and tore down the block under a storm of return fire Vincent Moretti's enemies would remember. Then it was over. Not safe. Just over. Elena reached us with both hands shaking. She took Noah from me and pressed his face into her neck. Sirens never came to this part of the city unless someone powerful wanted them to. And tonight the block held its breath instead. Powder smoke drifted under the street lamp in pale gray ribbons. A dented trash bin rolled on its side, scraping the curb with a thin metallic cry. Elena Carter stood only a few feet away, clutching Noah Carter so tightly that her knuckles had gone white, while the 6 Moretti organization guards spread into a hard semicircle around us and watched every roofline, every alley mouth, every parked car. I should have been looking for the truck to circle back. Instead, I was looking at the boy. Noah Carter lifted his head from Elena Carter's shoulder for 1 second, maybe less. Streetlight touched his face. Wide dark eyes. A shape to them I knew too well. Not just the color. Not just the lashes. The way they held a stare without flinching, as if fear had to pass through pride before it could touch him. My chest locked so suddenly it felt less like surprise and more like impact, like I had taken a round no one else could see. I had learned Elena Carter had a child. Now I had seen the boy's eyes. And something old, buried, and dangerous moved inside me. One of the guards asked if I was hit. I did not answer right away. Blood was running warm down the side of my hand from broken skin at the knuckles, but that was nothing. What shook me was memory, sharp as broken glass. A hotel suite in Chicago. Rain against black windows. Elena Carter, years younger, standing near the door with anger in her face and hurt she was too proud to show. I had told myself leaving her untouched by my world was mercy. I had built that lie so carefully, I almost respected it. Then Noah Carter looked at me again. I knew mercy had nothing to do with it. "Get them inside," I said. The words came out flat. Elena Carter did not move. Even trembling, she had the sense to read danger beyond bullets. Her eyes lifted to mine, and in them I saw calculation replacing panic. She was no longer asking whether the attack had been meant for me. She was asking whether Noah Carter had just become part of a secret I had never confessed. "Inside where?" Elena Carter asked. Not fear. Challenge. That was the first thing that cleared my head. My penthouse was secure, but taking her there would announce value. Her apartment was exposed. The truck had already proved that. A safe house would buy distance, but not trust. Every option cost something different. Control, secrecy, leverage, truth. For the first time in years, I hated all my own solutions. Then Elena Carter made the choice before I could. "Noah Carter is not going anywhere alone with your men," Elena Carter said. "If you want us moved, I go with him. If you refuse, we stay right here until the police your city forgot to send finally show up." The neighborhood children had appeared again at the far end of the block, for small silhouettes frozen near the chain-link fence, eyes round with the kind of fear children should never learn this early. They had seen the truck. They had heard the gunfire. They were watching Noah Carter as if survival had made him older than them in a single minute. Elena Carter was not begging me for protection. She was setting terms. "Fine," I said. A simple word, but it shifted the ground under both of us. I ordered 3 guards to sweep Elena Carter's building, 2 to the rear alley, 1 to drive. No one touched Elena Carter or Noah Carter without her seeing it first. No one spoke the boy's name on comms. No one reported the child beyond my direct line. The rules came fast, each one buying safety with secrecy, and each one pulling me deeper into a possibility I was not ready to name. As we moved, Noah Carter looked over Elena Carter's shoulder toward me again. Cold evening air slipped through the half-open car window and carried the smell of wet concrete, old brick, and someone's dinner cooling behind a screen door. I stayed in the back seat with the engine idling low, one hand on the leather armrest, the other resting near the phone I had not stopped checking since we left Elena Carter's building. Across the street, a narrow patch of sidewalk glowed under a weak street lamp, pale amber over cracked pavement and rusted chain link. 2 of my 6 guards held the corner like shadows, another watched the rear alley, and the rest kept their distance exactly as ordered. I had built my life on control, on distance, on never letting the personal step inside the circle of strategy. Then the child turned. Noah Carter had been tucked against Elena Carter's side before she set him down near the front steps of a small brick building where 4 neighborhood children waited with a rubber ball and sidewalk chalk. I only meant to confirm what I had already ordered protected. A face, a height, a pattern of movement. Enough to assess risk. Enough to leave. But when Noah Carter lifted his head and looked across the street, the world did something I had not felt in years. It stopped. Not because he smiled. Not because he waved. He did neither. The boy just looked at me with a stillness children rarely have, and under that street lamp his eyes caught the light in a color I knew too well. Gray, but not flat. Gray with a silver ring that sharpened when the light hit from the side. My breath locked so hard it burned my chest. I had seen those eyes once every morning in a mirror when I was young enough to think blood only meant family and never danger. I leaned forward before I realized I had moved. One of the guards spoke softly through the earpiece, asking if I wanted them closer. I cut the line with a tap and kept staring. Elena Carter crouched to fix Noah Carter's jacket, said something I could not hear, then sent him toward the other children with a warning hand at his shoulder. He ran 3 quick steps, stopped, and looked back again. Same eyes. Same pause before movement. Same way of studying a room before entering it. As if instinct had already taught him that safety could disappear between 1 second and the next. Comment below if you've ever seen one look change everything. I hated the thought the moment it formed, because suspicion was a clean blade, and this was not clean. Suspicion said Elena Carter had hidden a fact that might threaten my organization. This was worse. This was memory forcing its way through concrete I had poured over it years ago. A woman in a small apartment in Palermo. Rain against metal shutters. A promise made in a voice I had failed to protect. A departure I had justified because survival leaves no room for softness. I had buried all of it under money, violence, expansion, discipline. Buried, but not dead. Noah Carter laughed then, sudden and bright, because one of the neighborhood children threw the ball too hard, and it bounced off the stoop. The sound hit me like an insult to every lie I had used to survive. Elena Carter stood in the doorway watching, tired even from a distance. One hand braced against the frame, like she had spent too long carrying things alone. I studied the angle of her face, the line of her mouth, the way she scanned the street without wanting anyone to notice. Not fear. Habit. That changed the shape of everything. I opened the car door and stepped onto the curb before my better judgment could chain me back inside. My shoes met damp pavement. The street seemed louder all at once. The hiss of passing tires, a dog barking 3 houses down, a train horn far off in the dark. Noah Carter saw me first. The ball rolled to a stop against my shoe. The other children froze. Cold air sat low on the sidewalk, heavy with rain and exhaust, while a red rubber ball rested against the toe of my shoe, as if the street itself had placed a question there. The 4 neighborhood children went still in a crooked half-circle near the curb. Noah Carter stood at the center of them, one hand lifted, his face tipped up toward mine. Under the weak amber porch light, I saw it again, that impossible, familiar shape in his gaze. Not just the color. The way his eyes narrowed when he was thinking. The way they held on without fear. I bent, picked up the ball, and crouched so I was level with him. You dropped this. Noah Carter took it with both hands. You're the man from the car. Not a question. Elena Carter came out of the building before I answered, breathless, coat unbuttoned, panic already visible in the stiffness of her shoulders. She stopped on the top step when she saw me kneeling in front of her son. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then she came down fast, took Noah Carter gently by the arm, and placed herself between us with the instinct of someone who had been practicing protection for years. You shouldn't be here, she said. The words were for me, but her eyes were on the street. That detail lodged deeper than it should have. Not anger. Calculation. She was measuring windows, parked cars, the mouth of the alley beside the laundromat. I stood slowly. I need to ask you something. No. Noah Carter looked from her to me, confused, and one of the other children tugged at his sleeve. Elena Carter softened instantly for him. Inside. Now. The 4 children scattered toward the stoop and hallway, their sneakers slapping wet concrete. Noah Carter obeyed after one last glance at me, and that small obedience hit harder than it should have. Elena Carter stayed outside until the building door shut behind him. Only then did she face me fully, jaw tight, eyes bright with anger she had earned. I left for a reason, she said. The sentence stripped the night clean. Not denied. Not deflected. Confirmed. I felt every year I had spent burying old mistakes inside work, violence, and silence. Dates began lining up in my head with ugly precision. An office Christmas party, a winter storm, the last week before she vanished from my life with a resignation delivered through human resources and no explanation I had ever accepted. I had told myself it was pride that made her leave. Then grief. Then ambition. All the easy lies a man tells himself when the truth would demand too much. How old is he? I asked, though I already knew. Her chin lifted. Old enough to be left alone by powerful men who think curiosity is a right. That should have stopped me. Instead, it sharpened everything. I looked at her, really looked, and saw exhaustion under the strength. Saw the old wound behind the control. Why didn't you tell me? A hard laugh escaped her. Tell you what? That I was pregnant when I realized the safest thing for my child was disappearing before your world noticed me. My phone vibrated in my coat pocket. Once. Then again. A pattern my 6 Moretti organization guards used only when they thought delay could cost blood. I answered without taking my eyes off Elena Carter. Speak. One of the guards kept his voice low. 5 rival faction operatives were seen 2 blocks east. They tailed your car from downtown, then split. We think they're testing your routine. Not here, I thought immediately. Not on this street. I ended the call and looked past Elena Carter to the 2nd floor window where a small silhouette shifted behind thin curtains. My distraction had been seen. In my world, attention was a scent in the water. Rivals followed weakness the way sharks followed blood. Elena Carter read the change in my face before I spoke. What happened? Nothing yet. Her expression turned cold. That means something already did. This time she was the one who moved first. The hallway light hummed above us, pale and unforgiving, while rain tapped the window at the landing like fingers that refused to leave. Elena Carter didn't wait for my permission. She walked past me, opened her apartment door wider, and pointed inside with a hand that trembled only once. Noah Carter's small shadow moved again behind the thin curtain in the living room, then vanished. The air smelled like wet concrete, old radiator heat, and the kind of fear that settles in a home long before danger actually kicks the door in. "Come in," Elena Carter said. "If you're going to tear my life apart, at least do it where my son can't hear every word from the hallway." I stepped inside. The apartment was clean in the careful way poverty often is, every object earned, every inch used. A tiny pair of sneakers sat by the couch. A school crayon drawing was held to the refrigerator with a chipped magnet. On the table near the lamp, I saw a stack of unpaid bills, a sewing kit, and a children's book with a cracked spine. No luxury, no lies made of money, just survival stitched together 1 week at a time. Elena Carter shut the door and turned the lock. Then she faced me. "You want the truth," she said. "Fine, but you don't get to interrupt until I'm done." I said nothing. For once, silence cost me less than pride. Her eyes held mine, steady and angry. "The night I disappeared, I had already found out I was pregnant. I want to tell you." I had the words ready. "I also had blood on my blouse because one of your enemies had grabbed me outside the office garage and shoved me against a car hard enough to split my lip." The room went still. "I never told you that part," she said, "because I knew exactly what would happen if I did. You would hunt whoever touched me. People would die. Maybe I would too." A hard knot formed in my chest. She kept going. "That same week, I heard something I was never supposed to hear. A conversation in your office after hours. Not about me. About leverage. About family being the only weakness even powerful men can't seal off with guards and money." Her mouth tightened. "I understood what that meant before you ever had to explain it." Outside, thunder rolled low across the city. I was 31, scared, and already being watched, she said. "I saw one of the rival faction operatives outside my building twice before I left. Maybe they were watching you. Maybe they were watching me because I worked for you. It didn't matter. If I told you about Noah Carter, he wouldn't be a child anymore. He would be a pressure point." I took one step toward her. She lifted a hand. "Don't," she said. So I stopped. Her voice dropped, but it did not weaken. "I left because staying near you meant raising him under a target. I stayed gone because every year I told myself I was protecting him. And maybe I was also protecting you from yourself. Because if you knew, you would never let us out of your reach again." That one landed clean. She looked toward the curtained room where Noah Carter had gone quiet. "I raised him alone because alone was safer than loved. Do you understand how insane that sounds? That I trusted loneliness more than I trusted your power." I exhaled slowly. "Why come back?" A bitter laugh escaped her. "You think I wanted to? The school called about his tuition. My landlord raised the rent. My mother's old debts finally caught up with me. I took the only job I knew I could do well enough to keep food in the apartment." Her eyes hardened. "I came back because being poor leaves fewer choices than being afraid. Every excuse I had built in my head died there. I wasn't trying to trick you," she said. "I wasn't waiting for money. I wasn't planning some dramatic reveal." The last of her words stayed in the office like smoke after a gunshot, thin and impossible to ignore. I stood behind my desk with both hands braced against the cold wood, staring at Elena Carter as if force alone could pull 10 lost years into a shape that made sense. She had not begged. She had not cried. She had simply told me the truth in a voice so worn down by survival that it cut deeper than any accusation. "I know," I said. The words surprised both of us. For a second, Elena Carter did not move. Then her shoulders lowered by half an inch, not in relief, but in exhaustion. I could see it now with painful clarity. The rent notices folded in her purse, the calls from the school, the math of groceries, gas, and fear that women like her had to perform every single day just to keep one child warm and fed. Money had always been a weapon in my world. In hers, it was oxygen. I crossed to the window and looked down at the city. Rain glazed the streets in silver, and headlights crawled below like veins full of restless light. My enemies had already used her once without knowing what she truly was to me. That mistake would not happen again. But even as the decision formed, I felt the danger inside it. Protection, in my hands, had never come softly. You and Noah Carter are not staying in that apartment tonight, I said. Her head snapped up. That wasn't a request I made. It is still what's happening. The room went still. She came toward me then, anger giving strength to limbs that had looked ready to collapse a minute earlier. You don't get to decide where my son sleeps. No, I said. I decide who gets close enough to threaten him. That was the truth, and it was also the problem. By sundown, all 6 more Eddie organization guards had been reassigned. 2 went to the office lobby. 2 were placed outside Elena Carter's building. 2 more rotated near Noah Carter's school and the route between. I moved faster than mercy and cleaner than law. Her landlord received a visit and suddenly discovered a respect for existing lease terms. The school's accounts office found Noah Carter's tuition paid in full through the academic year. The old debt tied to Elena Carter's mother disappeared into a chain of purchased paper and closed files. Doors opened. Threats vanished. Pressure lifted. And with every move, Elena Carter looked at me less like shelter and more like a locked gate. I saw it that evening when I drove her home myself. The apartment building's hallway smelled like bleach and old plaster, the kind of place where every argument echoed through thin walls. Noah Carter sat at the kitchen table with a box of crayons spread around his homework, his small face brightening the second Elena Carter stepped inside. Then his eyes found me. The same steady dark eyes. My chest tightened before I could stop it. Did you bring the scary car again? Noah Carter asked. I should have laughed. Instead, I found myself kneeling to his level, expensive wool trousers against a scarred linoleum floor. I did. He considered that solemnly. It's too shiny for this street. Elena Carter let out one tired breath that almost sounded like a laugh. It changed the whole room. For one strange, unguarded second, I felt something in that cramped kitchen that no mansion, no club, no amount of power had ever given me. Not peace. Something more dangerous than that. The desire to belong. Noah Carter held up a blue crayon. Want to help? I took it. Elena Carter watched me from the sink while I colored in the crooked roof of a house drawn with a child's hand. Her expression softened, then hardened again, as if she hated herself for seeing anything human in me. Maybe she was right to hate it. Men like me did not become safe just because children smiled at us. Rain tapped against the apartment window in a nervous, uneven rhythm, the kind that made every city sound farther away than it was. Wax from the cheap yellow crayon still clung to my thumb when my phone began to vibrate inside my jacket. I saw the secure line flash once, then again, and every instinct I had built over 20 years went cold at the same time. Good news never called twice. One of the Moretti organization guards spoke the second I answered. His voice was tight, stripped of ceremony. Elena Carter had left the office early with Noah Carter, and the sedan assigned to shadow them had gone dark 3 blocks from her building. Not delayed, not rerouted. Gone. The room around me changed shape. Noah Carter was still at the little table, shoulders hunched over the drawing, blue crayon moving in short, determined strokes. Elena Carter looked up from the sink and saw my face before I said a word. She did not ask what happened. She only turned, saw the empty hallway beyond the apartment door where 2 of my men should have been visible through the cracked frame, and understood enough to go pale. Take Noah Carter to the bedroom, I said. Her chin lifted. No. That one word hit harder than a gunshot because it came from a mother, not an employee. She moved before I could repeat myself, crossing the room in 2 quick steps and pulling Noah Carter behind her. Her hand trembled on his shoulder, but her eyes did not. She already knew what men like my enemies did when they wanted to bleed another man without touching his skin. Then the first shot cracked through the hallway outside. The apartment walls threw the sound back at us. Plaster dust dropped from the ceiling in a fine white veil. Noah Carter flinched and grabbed Elena Carter's waist. I was already moving, shoving the kitchen table onto its side, dragging them both down behind it as a second round tore through the door and sent splinters skidding across the floor like dry teeth. So this was the answer to every doubt I had tried to maintain. The rival faction operatives had not just noticed Elena Carter. They had mapped the line from me to her, from her to the boy, and they had chosen the one place where my power meant the least, a mother's home, with a child inside it. Distance was over. Pretending they were separate from my world was over. My enemies had made the choice clean for me. Stay down, I said. Noah Carter was crying silently now, brave in the way children are when fear is too big to understand. Elena Carter wrapped herself around him, one arm shielding his head, the other clutching the edge of the overturned table. The softness I had allowed myself an hour earlier turned to steel. I drew my gun, signaled toward the window, and called the remaining 4 Moretti organization guards from my phone with 2 clipped words. Front stairwell. Now. The third shot never came. Instead, there was the hard metallic scrape of the front lock being tested from the outside, slow and deliberate, as if whoever stood there wanted us to hear exactly how little time we had left. Elena Carter looked at me then with something worse than fear. Recognition. This is because of you, she whispered. I did not insult her with a lie. Yes. The silence after that was brutal. Not because she had accused me, because she was right. One of the Moretti organization guards shouted from the hall. Another shot answered him. Men slammed into walls. Boots pounded the stairwell. The apartment became a box full of violence and echoes. I crossed to the window, smashed the latch with the butt of my gun, and kicked it open to the wet night air. 3 stories down, the alley glistened black under a broken street lamp. Too far for Elena Carter to jump safely. Too exposed to wait. I go first, I said. Then Noah Carter. Then Elena Carter. Cold rain struck my face as I dropped into the alley and landed hard enough to send pain up both legs. Mud splashed my pants. The broken street lamp above us hissed and flickered, turning the wet brick walls into a cage of black glass and dirty gold. I looked up, raised both arms, and told Noah Carter to come to me. He did not cry. He did not freeze. At 6 years old, with gunfire still cracking through the apartment window behind him, he studied the distance once, judged it, and jumped exactly when I told him to. I caught him against my chest and nearly lost my footing on the slick pavement. His small hands locked around my neck, not in panic, but in discipline, as if he had already learned that fear had to wait its turn. That was the first blow, not to my body, to something deeper. I set him down behind the dented metal trash bin, then looked up again as Elena Carter climbed onto the sill with blood on one sleeve and rain in her hair. Now, I said. She came down badly. I broke her fall with my shoulder and took the impact into my side. Pain flared hot under my ribs. Above us, another shot burst through the window frame, spraying splinters into the alley. From the stairwell door at the end of the building, one of the rival faction operatives shoved through with a gun in his hand and murder already decided in his face. Before I could fire, Noah Carter moved. Not toward the street. Not toward cover. Toward Elena Carter. He grabbed her wrist with both hands and dragged, trying to pull her behind the trash bin while I turned and put 2 rounds into the attacker's chest. The man slammed into the alley wall and slid down into the rain. Smoke curled from my gun. The whole world narrowed to Elena Carter breathing hard on the ground and Noah Carter bracing himself in front of her, too small to shield anyone and doing it anyway. Then he looked at me. Children are supposed to have open faces. Soft faces. Faces that still belong to tomorrow. Noah Carter looked at me with something I had spent half my life seeing in mirrors, in polished black car windows, in restaurant glass after midnight meetings. Calculation under pressure. The refusal to collapse. The kind of hurt that learns to stand up before it learns to heal. My own eyes stared back at me from a child who should never have needed them. The rain kept falling. Somewhere above, boots thundered through the apartment. Somewhere out on the street, one of my 6 Moretti organization guards shouted my name. But in that alley, time bent around one unbearable fact. I had spent days telling myself resemblance meant nothing. Eyes could trick a man. Coincidence could poison judgment. Elena Carter's silence could still be something else, some other grief, some other history. But instinct does not lie when blood recognizes blood. Noah Carter did not know who I was to him. Elena Carter knew, and had carried it alone. And I knew, finally, without room left to run. My hand shook once before I holstered the gun. Elena Carter saw the change before I spoke. She pushed herself up on one elbow, guarded even now, as if the truth could still be defended by force of will. Rain slid down her face, mixing with sweat and dust. There was defiance in her eyes, but underneath it, exhaustion so deep it looked ancient. You should have told me, I said. Her jaw tightened. I tried to survive. The words hit harder than any bullet that night. Because they were not an excuse. They were a verdict. On me. On the world I had built. On the kind of man a woman had to hide from if she wanted her child to stay untouched. Noah Carter looked between us, breathing fast, confused but alert. He was still holding Elena Carter's sleeve, still ready to move her if danger came back. Noah Carter looked between us, breathing fast, confused but alert. He was still holding Elena Carter's sleeve, still ready to move her if danger came back. And in that shattered quiet, Elena Carter did the one thing no one in my world ever expected. She stepped in front of me. Not behind me. Not beside me. In front. The street lamp above the alley buzzed weakly, throwing pale light over broken glass, rainwater, and the hard black shine of the SUV where my 6 Moretti organization guards stood watch in a tense ring. A few yards away, the last of the 5 rival faction operatives groaned against the pavement, disarmed, breathing, finished. The smell of wet concrete and gunpowder hung low in the air. But Elena Carter was not looking at any of them. Her eyes were locked on me, steady now, stripped of fear by something greater than fear. "You do not get to protect him in the dark," she said. Every guard went still. She had blood on one sleeve. Noah Carter pressed against her side, and yet her voice carried through that alley like a sentence handed down from a higher court. She was not asking for safety anymore. She was naming the price of it. "If you want to stand near my son," Elena Carter said, each word clean and unshaking, "then stand where he can see you. No lies. No disappearing. No half-truths. He does not need another shadow in his life." The room life had built inside me. Cold marble, steel doors, old excuses, cracked all at once. Noah Carter tilted his face up toward me. Those eyes. My eyes. The truth I had spent years outrunning was no longer a suspicion, no longer a private wound to examine in secret. It was a living boy in a rain-damp jacket, watching to see what kind of man I would choose to be while he was still young enough to remember it forever. I lowered the gun in my hand and handed it, grip first, to one of the 6 Moretti organization guards. Then I took 2 slow steps forward and crouched until I was eye level with Noah Carter. He did not move. Neither did I. "My name is Vincent Moretti," I said, not as a warning, not as a title, but as a man stripping himself of armor. "And I should have been here sooner." Noah Carter blinked. His small hand tightened around Elena Carter's sleeve, then loosened. I did not reach for him. I let him decide the distance. "I cannot change the years I was absent," I said. "But if your mother allows it, and if you allow it, I will never leave you unprotected again." The alley fell silent. Noah Carter studied me with the grave concentration only children possess, as if he could weigh truth better than grown men ever had. Then he asked the question that mattered more than blood, more than power, more than any empire I had built. "Are you going to make my mom scared again?" The words landed with more force than the gunshots had. I looked at Elena Carter before I answered, because the truth belonged to her first. "No," I said. "Never again." Elena Carter's face did not soften quickly. It should not have. Trust that had been starved for years did not return because a man finally spoke the right words in the right light. But she saw something in me that had not been there before. Not possession, not control, not hunger for forgiveness I had not earned. Submission to the truth. I rose and turned to the 6 Moretti organization guards. "From this moment on," I said, my voice flat as iron, "Elena Carter and Noah Carter are under my direct protection. No secrecy, no distance. They are to be treated with the same respect as my own life. Anyone who fails that answers to me." 6 heads nodded. "Immediate. Absolute." Then I faced Elena Carter again. "In the morning," I said, "my lawyer will transfer a house into your name. Clean title. No strings.